everybody, welcome to the Guys Learning Japanese podcast. How's it going, Nick?
It's going good. How are you?
Awesome. For today's show, I would like to talk about our favorite apps, software, and websites for learning Japanese. Would you like to start?
Sure. Okay. So my first suggestion is NHK News Easy. It's a website. I don't know its exact address, but if you just type in NHK News Easy, you should be able to find it. And
In alphabet?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a website. It's entirely in Japanese, and it summarizes about 4 or 5 stories a day in simple Japanese. That is, Japanese that a kid could understand. And so it often doesn't have extremely long or extremely abstract, words, and it often describes concepts. And there's within the actual articles, there are often underlined words. And if you put your cursor over those underlined words, it actually comes up with a definition in Japanese of what that word means. And it often does that for katakana words, which says something probably about the target audience of this. Isn't really made for foreigners. It's probably made for young Japanese people who don't really who aren't really familiar with a lot of katakana words at this point. But it's a really, really great website. Have you used it?
I think I've looked at it before, like a few years ago, and I thought it was a really good idea. Like, it would be really good for any person who was in the beginner to intermediate phase who wanted a challenge. It's good even for advanced students, I think, because it is directed towards native speakers, so you can really pick up a lot of natural expressions and vocabulary. But even for a beginner or intermediate student, I think it's really good because it's very simple. It's simplified for kids, if I remember it correctly.
Yep. And so also within each article is a link back to the regular NHK website and the regular article. So once you've, for example, if you found the article to be too easy, then you can always click on the link, and it will take you back to the regular NHK website, and then you can read the more complicated article, knowing that you actually already know the story, which you actually already know what happened in the news. And so it's a much more easy to understand because you don't have to do that extra step of trying to figure out the meaning. You already know the meaning. It's just a matter of essentially hearing it said or reading it said in more complicated, more difficult Japanese.
On the Easy website, what age range do you think it's targeted for?
Probably from about grade 4, maybe through to about the equivalent of grade 8 or junior high school, second year junior high school, around about that age, I'd say.
Yeah, so like maybe 10 to 14 or so? 10 to 14 years old?
Yeah, about that old, yep.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good process to go through if you're willing to invest the time.
Yeah, it's really good. How about you? Do you have any suggestions?
For websites, I'll go to a little more advanced one. I think I've mentioned it before. It's called JapanCrush. JapanCrush has a lot of interesting bilingual articles. Usually the articles that are on JapanCrush are written in English, and then when you hover your cursor over the text or the paragraph, the Japanese, the original article in Japanese will appear, or the equivalent paragraph will appear. And they're carefully selected articles. Like, they're always really interesting articles, kind of interesting stories that have been happening. Like, I'll look at what's today's hot topics. I'm just bringing it up right now, but one of them is about heroic van driver distributes free bread in heavy snow. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Another one, fashion model arrested for stealing curtains. That sounds good. Jilted man demands ex-lover to repay cost of dates upon breakup. I like these articles. They're interesting to me. They're kind of funny. I like to keep my study lighthearted. So I really enjoy like going through the Japanese original. Usually what I do is I search for the original Japanese article. There's always a link there. So I click on that first. I read that, and then I'll read the English one after that, and then maybe I'll reread the Japanese one. So 3 reads total. Japanese, English, then Japanese again. That's usually what I do. And the comments are really good too. They have curated comments. They're comments that are commented directly on this JapanCrush website, but they also have the best comments from Facebook and the best comments from Ni Channel, like 2 channel in English. It's like a forum or message board where a lot of Japanese people get together and hate and post what they really think about certain things. So you tend to get really extreme reactions and comments from there because it's all anonymous, so people are not worried about being exposed. But yeah, I like JapanCrush a lot.
I think there's 2 things that are really, really great about JapanCrush. One of them, obviously, it's got the translations. That goes without saying that's great. But it's really great to read the comments as a learner to figure out the way that you say some of these things, which are just everyday things that you might say to your friends, everyday slang that you might say to your friends, to see how they're said in Japanese. And that directly links into the second point, which is the translations themselves are so phenomenal on the website that you always feel like what is being said, the tone of what is being said in the article, as well as the tone of what is being said within the comments, is accurately represented in both languages.
I agree. Yeah, the translations are really wonderful. They have a great cast of translators.
So, would you like me to go next?
Sure.
This is a service I've already previously mentioned, but I'd like to mention again the service Lang8. Lang8 is an online service where you can write articles, you can translate articles, you can write short stories or poems or whatever you would like, blog posts in a different language, and that article or blog post or whatever it might be will be corrected and assessed by native Japanese people or people in the native language of the article that you're writing in, and so it's a wonderful way not only of being able to get your ironing out the kinks in your writing style or to learn a lot of new things. It's also a great way to learn how to give and receive feedback in a different language. It's also, I'd imagine, a great way to meet friends as well, because you have a situation where you're correcting their work and they're correcting your work, and it becomes a kind of mutually beneficial arrangement within the beginning, and then that might develop and flourish into something more afterwards. It's just a great service, and it's entirely free, and everything works on a system of essentially you marking other people's work, and that moves your blogs or your whatever you're writing up in ranks, up in this sort of ranking of essentially there's an enormous pile of these blog posts, and the more corrections you're doing, the higher it moves up in that pile, so more people are able to see it.
Cool. Okay, so I'll go next. I'll kind of continue with the apps or websites that we'll look at in a browser. So I use Readability. So Readability is it's a I think it's called an add-on, or maybe it's an extension. I use it in Firefox and in Chrome. So what it does is it gets rid of all the distractions that are on a website and the ads, everything, and you can select the size of the text and the font that you want, and it really simplifies the main content that you're looking for. So whenever I read something on a website, like if it's a blog post, something from JapanCrush or something from Itai News, that's another website I really like. I'll usually save it to my Readability, and then from there, I'll usually read the article. I like to put the fonts really big, and I like to decrease the margins, the page margins, so it's a really comfortable reading experience. I don't feel any strain at all when I'm using this app, and it just makes the overall experience better. I can read more, longer. So, do you use any apps like this?
I do. I use one called Clearly, which I'm not. I think Readability came before Clearly, but Clearly is made by the same company that makes Evernote, and next to Evernote, there within when you push the Clearly button, it sort of swipes across the screen, and like exactly like in Readability, it makes the text a lot bigger. It puts the text into a nice font, and it conforms to the other settings that you've set for it. And then there's a bar down on the right hand side where you can change the font, or you can change the size, etc. But there is also a button where it says save to Evernote, and you can just simply click that button, and it will save to the notebook that you've specified.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it operates much the same as I'd imagine you can probably save to Evernote within Readability as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The main reason I use this is because I find that there are a lot of distractions on Japanese websites. Take a look at Rakuten or Rakuten, for example. There's just too much content being displayed on one page, so I really like to simplify it, so it makes the reading experience better.
Yeah, I actually tend to think that about 95% of websites are ugly, so it's a really, really good way to de-uglify websites.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but speaking of sort of getting rid of the nonsense, my next choice of software, or rather, it's probably like you said, an extension or an add-on, is called Stay Focused. Well, the within Chrome there is an extension called Stay Focused, and unfortunately, there's no Firefox version of Stay Focused, but Firefox has one called Leech Block. I personally prefer Stay Focused, but they're essentially almost the same thing, which is they're services where you can block websites, and you can block them for specific amounts of time. You can choose, okay, just shut down or lock down these few websites. So you can. It's very customizable. So you can lock down a certain amount of websites for a certain amount of time, or you can all sort of set it up, especially in Leech Block. It's very, very good to set it up with these different accounts and everything. So, okay, I know that on this day and this day and this day, I'm likely to go to these websites, so you can sort of really tailor it exactly to your needs. And it's just a great way, for example, if you want to do some study in Anki and you're prone to, to going on YouTube or something, you can just say, look, you can just sort of give yourself a break and just sort of say, okay, I'm just blocking YouTube altogether, and that might help you, get your Anki reps done, or whatever whatever you're planning on doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like it really does keep you focused, like stay focused.
Yeah, because I remember
Good title for it.
Yeah, I used to do the same thing, but I used to just unplug the internet. But of course, the problem with that is that there are plenty of websites on the internet, such as NHK News Easy or JapanCrush or whatever it might be, that you actually want to use. And so this is a good middle ground.
Yeah, sounds good. It sounds a bit like Rescue Time. You might want to check this one out if you're a Firefox user. Rescue Time.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, so my next one, to continue with something that you look at in a browser, I'll talk about Twitter and Facebook, using them in Japanese. I don't mean setting your default language to Japanese. I mean just observing Japanese people interact together. So if you have friends on Twitter, or if you follow people on Twitter, and if you have friends, Japanese friends on Facebook, it's really good to watch how people interact together, like reading their post and reading how people comment or what people comment. And I think you don't have to post or comment in Japanese, but I think it's really beneficial just to kind of participate in a passive way, just reading it. And if you want to comment, just do it in whichever language you feel comfortable. Like, do it in English if you want. But the main thing is just being exposed to Japanese people talking together without feeling the need to participate yourself until you're ready.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. I've never really thought of using Twitter just for that purpose, just for the purpose of of creepily stalking people.
Yeah, well, it sounds a little creepy if you call it, cyber stalking, but that's not how I see it. It's studying, right? I'm studying.
Yeah. Have you ever taken things that people have said and made Anki cards out of them?
Yeah, pretty often actually. Well, it's like I do the same thing with the comments that are on JapanCrush. Like sometimes I learn like a really good expression from that. I add that to an Anki deck. The comments on Facebook and Twitter are kind of the same. Sometimes people, it doesn't happen often, but people say something really smart, and I'll add that to an Anki card.
Okay, so do you want me to move on to my next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is another one I've mentioned briefly, but I guess I'll mention it in a bit more depth now, which is subs to SRS. This is not a website. This is a bit of software. Now, I don't know if you can get this for Macs, but you can definitely get it for Windows, and it's just like the name suggests. It's a program where you can input, for example, Japanese subtitles that you may have downloaded from a server, say like D-Addicts, which is a great website if you're interested in Japanese or Korean or Chinese dramas, for example. And then so you might put in the Japanese subtitles into into this program, into this piece of software, and then you can also put in a video, and you can sort of just essentially push a button and it will process the whole thing for you, and it will make Anki cards that have, depending on your what you'd prefer, it can have mini video clips or it can just have audio, which is the way that I prefer it. And it has essentially, it makes an Anki card which has the the video, or rather like an image from that part of the drama, and then below it the subtitle, and then also the accompanying audio for that part of the drama, and it essentially turns it into an Anki card. It's amazing. It's a really, really great piece of free software that is amazing. I mean, if you've got an episode of a drama or an anime or something like that you think this is really hard, I would like to study this in more depth, just sort of chuck it in that program and then import it into Anki, and you've just made 200 or 300 or 400 cards for yourself just in sort of 10 minutes.
I can't even begin to imagine how that works. That's just amazing.
It's really, really great. Unfortunately, it takes a little bit of time to set up. I'm sure they've got a lot of great references on the website. You can go to lots and lots of different. I know that the website KanjiCaughey.com has a very a very very busy forum scene. I'm sure that there are people on that everywhere who have really really great setups for subs to SRS to get it to create really 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 good cards for your decks. But for me, yeah, it took a little while. I actually went online. It was a long time ago now, but I went online and looked at some YouTube clips of essentially exactly how to get the settings all good so that the cards are in the exact way that I like them. And probably the program has become better and more streamlined, from that point. But in any case, yeah, it took a little while to set up, probably a couple of days to set up, probably 2 or 3 hours in total to set it up. And then, but that's nothing compared to how easy it then becomes to make cards and how useful it can be for you.
Yeah, a few hours sounds like it's completely worth it if it does what you're saying it does.
It certainly does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that, it has another feature which I've also mentioned, which you can extract the audio from video. So that's a really, really great tool. Even, it might be, for instance, that you've downloaded a song on YouTube, and it might not even be a Japanese song. It could just be for anything. But in the case of Japanese, it might be a drama that you would put into this program. And then you could essentially extract the audio. You could either extract the audio for the entire length of the original clip, or you can choose the intervals that you want to break it up into. And so I normally break it up into 4 or 5 minute chunks, and then I put those chunks onto my iPod, and then while I'm walking around, I have a shuffle playlist. A playlist that I've created, which is all just Japanese dramas and Japanese anime and movies. And then I just push shuffle on that, and while I'm going for a walk, I'm just listening to different dramas and different anime and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go next?
Yes, please.
All right, so kanji, as we've said many times, it's not really an intuitive system. It's easy to forget, it's hard, and not many people are writing every day, like in terms of content. I think outside of, people's address or their name or some other basic information, people aren't really writing, adults at least, they're not really writing kanji that often, so it's really easy to forget how to write kanji. So when the situation comes when you actually have to write a message or a letter to someone by hand, a lot of people can't. So recently, as a strategy to try and combat this, I've been using on my Note 3, Samsung Galaxy Note 3. It has an S Pen, I use that. I've been using the Samsung Japanese keyboard. And what you do with this is, instead of using like the 10 key flick keyboard or like the QWERTY keyboard that you use with your index finger or your thumbs, you use the pen and you actually write the characters, whether it be hiragana, katakana, or kanji. You write it by hand with the pen, and then that appears in the text box. Some options appear, like if, let's say, you mess up the stroke order or your writing's a little bad, you'll have options to select from. So you can select the appropriate kanji. So just by doing this, it just feels like the kanji and the characters, they're fresh in my memory. So whenever I have a situation that I have to write something now, it's I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier than it was originally because I'm practicing every day. Yeah. So I think it's a really good system to use if you care about writing and if your goal is to have fluency in writing.
How accurate is it? For example, does it normally get the kanji that you had in mind? Is it normally pretty accurate?
Yeah. Like I've used it for. I only started using it recently. It was on a blog post recommendation. His name is Edo Inoue. He's a American naturalized Japanese guy, and he was talking about this on his blog, and I had never really thought about using it before, but it does exactly what he says. It really does help you remember the kanji. So I've only been using it for about a week or so, maybe a few hours total, and I've only had it mess up like once or twice. So it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's much more accurate than autocorrect, like on iOS or something.
Yep.
So I'm pretty satisfied with it. It takes a bit more time, obviously, because if you're using the flick keyboard, the 10 key flick keyboard for input, it's pretty quick. Like you can get a message off really quickly with that. So with this, you actually have to write it by hand, so it takes a bit more time. But you're getting the message out there, and you're practicing your kanji at the same time.
Yeah, and
So,
if you're someone who is frequently writing messages, and you've got a lot of Japanese friends and stuff, why not just sort of just add a bit more to it? You can have some good practice.
yeah, it's a digital solution for an analog problem.
It is, yeah, it's great.
So, do you want to go next? I only have a couple more things to say, so
Okay.
we should probably try and wrap it up in a few more.
Okay, sure. Well, me too. Actually, I've only got a couple more that I'd like to say. One of them is a website, rather a service called Tagaini, which is an offline dictionary, and I know that most things are connected online all the time now, but very occasionally you might not have access to the internet, or if there's some problem, for example, like you're getting internet set up at that time or whatever it might be. Tagaini is an offline dictionary that's pretty good. I mean, it's mostly a Japanese to English dictionary. I'm not quite sure about English to Japanese. I normally don't use English to Japanese at all. But yeah, I've found it to be gets the job done. It's a nice and very light program to just have on in the background. If for example I'm downloading something in the background, my internet's not very fast at all, and so if I'm downloading something in the background that I really want to go as fast as it possibly can, and I don't want to have lots of dictionary programs opened up on my browser, I'll just have this one opened up, and it's sort of just running all offline, so there's no dramas at all. The size of the program is quite big, obviously, because it's got a lot of words in it, but it's very light as it's running. It's very easy to open and close extremely quickly, and it's very efficient and quick.
Mm-hmm. How good is it? Like in terms of rarity of words or vocab selection.
I'm not sure. I would say there's definitely better dictionaries out there. I mean, I think the online equivalents, the online dictionaries I use, such as jisho.org or alk.co.jp, which is great for sentences. Both of those, some combination of those programs is, probably far surpasses Tagaini. But it's I don't really want to say all that much negative about it. I think it was made by one guy, and I think he's done a really good job. It's a really nice, efficient, works really well. Yeah, offline dictionary.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll go next.
Sure.
I know you use both of these too, so we'll both be able to talk a good amount about it. So in Firefox, it's called Rikaichan, and in Google Chrome, it's called Rikaikun. So this is amazing. When you hover over a Japanese word or a kanji, the definition appears. That's as simple as it gets. It's really, really useful. I think it's a bit better in terms of functionality in Firefox because a lot of the functions, like for example, Control S or Command S, I'm not sure which it is right now, but like if you want to create a text file of a bunch of words, every word that you think is useful, you press Control S, and that'll save into a text file into a location that you choose. And then you can easily add those words and the definitions, which are all right there. You can easily add that to Anki. So you can save a lot of time rather than copying everything and then pasting it one by one. It's really good if you're like reading like a long article and you just want to get through it quickly. So rather than like taking a lot of time to look up each word individually in a dictionary, just using this, it just makes everything much more efficient. Yeah, like if you're learning Japanese, you have to have this add-on or this extension.
Yeah. It's fundamental. I mean, even when I'm using NHK News Easy, which I normally understand without it, I just have it on in the background anyway, just in case. That's how useful I find it.
And if you're using Internet Explorer, I think there's no way you're going to learn Japanese. So just quit everything.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any options for someone who's using Internet Explorer.
Yeah. All right. Well, so do you want me to move on to the next one?
Yeah, sure. I only got one left.
Yeah, me too. This is my last one too. I've already very briefly mentioned it within this podcast, but it's KanjiCaughey.com. There's some worth to going onto the forums and checking out the recommendations of the people who hang out on those forums. It's a kind of, in my personal opinion, not a great forum to spend really a long length of time on. But the actual website itself is absolutely fantastic. It has it's called Reviewing the Kanji, and it essentially has stories that have been created, or mnemonic stories that have been created for the meanings of each kanji and the radicals of each kanji, using the radicals and the meanings designated by Heisig in his wonderful book, Remembering the Kanji. Yeah, and there's a great system where they have all these different stories, and then those stories are ranked by popularity, and so obviously at number one it has the most popular story, and normally the most popular story is a very good story and a very easy way of remembering that kanji as far as the mnemonic and its constituent radicals.
I think the stories, they're ranked by like the registered users of this forum.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of if you just want to bypass the website altogether because you're not interested in the forum, etc., you could probably go on to Anki Shared Decks. I mean, obviously we could mention how much we love Anki. I don't know if that's your last one, your last.
It is.
I'll let you get to it in just a second, but you can go on to Anki Shared Decks and you can probably type in Reviewing the Kanji or something similar to that, or KanjiCaughey even, and it will probably come up with all of the top stories collected and made into an Anki deck where you can literally just push the input button and it will the import button rather, and it will just import that entire deck, and then you've just got so much work already just figured out for you, and you can just study those cards and learn all the kanji in a tenth of the time.
Yeah. I used KanjiCaughey, just the website, for a little while. Like I was using it for about a year. And this was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought it was really useful. And like you said, yeah, usually the top stories are really good.
Yeah.
They're the top stories because they are good.
Yeah, I mean, it almost felt like I was cheating, like it's a secret I didn't want to tell anyone. I can't believe how much easier it is to learn kanji. I thought this thing was supposed to be super hard. And no doubt it is hard to remember, the writing of them and whatnot, but I think it was made vastly easier by this program. I mean, it's this website is wonderful, and once again, free.
Okay, so I'll go to the last one now for me. I think we've dedicated a full episode to this one, and I think we've mentioned it also in every podcast we've recorded, so I don't really know if we have to cover it in detail too much, but Anki. Anki is definitely the most essential app for me learning Japanese. Honestly, it's the best way to learn vocab, and just adding vocab to a deck and then adding the definition to it. There are just so many ways, like even using the close function. I'm not going to go into detail about it for too long because we're already going over time now. But if you want to learn vocab, Anki is definitely the best way to do it. You're using flashcards, and vocab is, the building blocks to any language, so it's really going to facilitate the process of you moving vocab into your long-term memory. The algorithms that they use to, show you the harder cards or the cards that you suck at more often, it ends up working in your favor. It's just studying smarter, better.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a lot of people.
And it's free. It's free. Honestly,
it is.
The desktop version is free. iOS is paid. The Android version is free, but it's a free app. I think even if you're just using the desktop version or the web version, you don't have to download the app if you don't want to. But even if you're just using the free version, I think you should really donate or do something to support the designers of this, because it's helped me a lot, and it's helping lots of people. It's just a wonderful app. Definitely support them.
Yeah, you know how they say that, with modern day technology, especially with young people, people seem kind of almost attached to their phones or attached to their gadgets. I feel like that kind of with Anki. It's become an absolutely inseparable part of the way that I study Japanese. It's integral. Ditching Anki would feel like total suicide for me as far as my studying of Japanese. I don't know what I would do in place of Anki, like whether I would just try and watch more dramas or whatever it might be. But then there'd be this great hole of, well, how am I gonna remember all of these cards? I mean, or how am I gonna remember all of these things that I'm studying and whatnot? I don't really know how I was studying before it, and since I've started using it, which is years and years ago now, I've definitely seen a lot of things. In particular, my Japanese skyrocket. I mean, I used it to study the prefectures, and I've used it to study all different types of things within the Japanese language, and yeah, each one of them has been made all the more successful because of this program.
Yeah, could you imagine actually using physical flashcards?
Yep.
After you've used Anki?
Yeah. I mean, it would just take so long.
Like writing it?
Yeah, it just takes so long to write them.
Yeah, and you have no idea which cards you're good at or which cards you're bad at. So, yeah, Anki, it's just, if you're learning Japanese, get Anki.
Yeah.
Or any language, or anything, honestly. It doesn't even have to be a language. If you want to remember data or information, use Anki.
Is that it? Are we done?
That's all I've got.
Yeah, that's all I've got too. Yeah, that's I'm exhausted. That's a lot of really, really good apps and websites and software though.
Yeah, I think if you can't learn Japanese with the resources we've given you in this episode, you're hopeless. Yeah, we've given you more than enough. That's all you need.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, all right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care. Okay, thanks for listening to the Guys Learning Japanese podcast. Send your questions to gljpodcasts@gmail.com. We'll answer your questions on the show.